It's live.
Brilliant. So welcome everyone to this meeting of the Joint Staff Consultative Committee. Um, just going to do a quick roll call and then run through proceedings. So can I confirm the following members and officers are in attendance, can hear us, and that we can hear them? Councillor Daniel Allen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Albert.
Hello.
Hello. Councillor Keith Hoskins.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Councillor Bryony May.
Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon. And Councillor Claire Strong.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And then officers, Ian Cooper.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Rebecca Webb.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And Keith Fitzpatrick Matthews.
I'm here. Afternoon.
Afternoon. Lewis Franklin.
Afternoon, I'm also here.
Afternoon, thank you. And Melanie Fideas. Sorry, Melanie, I don't think we can hear you. Can you just... Oh, yes, now I can hear you now. Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you. Are there any other members or officers in attendance that I haven't called out at all? No? Okay, brilliant. So, members may request to speak using the raise hand function, and the same function will be used to vote. The chair will notify you of when it is your turn to speak. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Brilliant. So, item 1, election of chair for civic year 2025/26. Can I please request nominations for a chair of the committee for the civic year 2025/2026?
Chair, I'm happy to nominate Councillor Daniel as chair.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. And can I have a seconder for that nomination, please?
I'm happy to second.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Strong. Are there any further nominations? No, doesn't look like it. So I announce that Councillor Daniel Allen has been elected as chair for the civic year 2025/2026. I'll hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for nominating me to chair again, or accepting me to chair again this year. I do appreciate it. I'd like to welcome everyone to this Joint Staff Consultative Committee being conducted virtually with members, officers and representatives. As with previous meetings, I welcome comment and discussion throughout the meeting from everybody attending. Right, apologies for absence. There have been no apologies received from councillors, I believe. Are there any other apologies?
No, none received, I believe.
Okay. The election of vice chair for the civic year. Can I please request nominations for a vice chair of the committee for the civic year 25/26? Who'd like to do it?
I'm happy to do it, or I'm happy for Keith or Claire to do whatever. I chaired the last meeting, but whatever anybody wants, really.
Claire?
I'll do it if you want me to be vice chair.
Yeah.
I will happily second that as vice chair.
Good cross-party working.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Delight
chaps.
to vote for you, Claire.
Thank you. Probably the first and only time, but there you go.
I'm sure that's not true.
Wonderful. I am happy about that. Right. We will then move on, please, to the minutes from the 18th of June 2025. I'd like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the committee held on the 18th of June 2025. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Albert. And I'm going to approve this by consensus unless anyone has anything they wish to say on the minutes.
Approved.
Approved.
That's what we like. Chair's announcements. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on ModGov or on the North Arts Council's YouTube page. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. The discussion paper on the implications of the UK Supreme Court judgment on single-sex spaces in the workplace will not be discussed at this meeting as the guidance from the Equalities and Human Rights Commission has not yet been published. This discussion paper will be brought to a future meeting of the committee when the guidance has been published. HR information note for Rebecca Webb to present.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take you through the paper, starting with 3.2 recruitment. So the table in the paper highlights our recruitment data for Q1 and a comparison between this year and the previous 2 years, the same quarter. The target for vacancies filled at the first attempt is 75%, and we've met the target for this quarter at 85%. We have seen double the number of vacancies in this quarter compared to the same period last year. Most have been filled. We had three unfilled vacancies, 2 in governance and 1 in environmental health. And since writing the paper, these have either been temporarily filled or are being re-advertised. I believe I was asked last time about the success of internal applicants. And we've checked the data and we can see that 22% of our vacancies in the last year were filled by internal candidates. Moving to 3.3, which highlights turnover. This continues to hover around the 9% mark. This rate is higher than the same period last year, but when we compare our turnover data to other local councils using the LGA benchmarking tool, the percentage is broadly in line with that average. It's an area that we will continue to closely monitor, especially with local government reorganisation on the horizon. And this not only includes looking at the data, but also reviewing and acting on feedback from leavers and staff surveys. 3.4 covers absence, which has reduced over recent months, mainly due to a reduction in our long-term absence figures. The reasons for long-term absence vary, but we continue to see high levels of mental health absences, and the HR team continue to provide support and guidance and raise awareness about mental health in general. I've highlighted a recent CIPD report noting the increase in sickness absence nationally, with an average of 9.4 days lost reported by the CIPD. And that compares to our 7.8 days lost in the last 12 months. 3.5 is a very quick update on the national pay bargaining process. We had a 3.2 pay award agreed in July, and that was paid to staff in their salaries in August. So moving on to 3.6, which covers an update on our apprentices. We've refreshed our mentoring scheme for apprentices, allowing our current graduates the opportunity to mentor our current apprentices. And we'll also be ensuring that each new apprentice is given a fellow apprentice buddy at the start of their employment. And that should help them settle in to the organisation and their apprenticeship programmes. And our newly recruited graduate joined us earlier this month. We've received fantastic feedback from managers about the impact that the current graduates are making across the organisation and their value added on projects that they're supporting. So that's really good news. 3.8, an update on learning and development. So we continue to run our personal development mornings, and we've recently focused on the National Inclusion Week, avoiding burnout and taking breaks and feeling safe at work, both physically and psychologically. The feeling safe focus links to our staff survey action plan and allowed an opportunity for us to highlight resources available and tell staff how to access that support via a poster, which is being shown online and in the offices. We've also been running bite-sized manager skills sessions to support those core management skills such as managing sickness absence and carrying out appraisals. And this is part of our ongoing development for managers. So 3.9 is wellbeing. We've had quite a few things going on in terms of employee wellbeing. So we've continued with our messaging and signposting for employees to our employee assistance programme, to videos and fact sheets from our occupational health provider and other external resources. We marked World Mental Health Day last week with a mental health lunchtime walk and an opportunity for colleagues to connect and talk and be outside. And we also launched our wellbeing room at the Letchworth offices at the same time. And the idea behind the room is that we provide a space for employees to take mindful breaks from their working day with a view to better supporting them manage their mental health. So moving to 3.10, an update on the activities of our inclusion group. National Inclusion Week took place during September, and staff were provided with a range of resources and information, as well as a chance to attend a webinar which focused on becoming an active bystander. That was available live at the time, but is also available now for staff to watch if they weren't able to be there. So it looks to give the skills and confidence for staff to interrupt a situation where they observe discrimination. And then finally, 3.11, an update on our staff events, which will run in September. This was our first ever all-staff event for North Herts Council, and it provided a great opportunity to get lots of our staff together and talk about local government reorganisation, take part in team building and skills development. We requested feedback from attendees after the event, and we've received lots of positive comments about being together and team building, and we'll use this feedback to help us develop the staff event for next year. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions?
I do, but where's my hand?
I'll accept you just speaking.
I think Ian was first, though.
No, you were first. You were first, Claire. You just were looking for your hand.
A couple of things I was going to ask. You talked about the turnover, and obviously that's a bit higher than last year. Sometimes high turnover is not necessarily a bad thing, but just a feel for it. Is it staff that have got lots of years service, or some of the newer ones who've gained some experience with us and now have been able to go and get other opportunities outside? Just a little bit more on that. Again, I know you do look at the reasons for leaving, but I'm interested in whether or not we're hemorrhaging sort of really good experience at times. And also you talked about the Mental Health Awareness Day and the walk. I was just interested, did many of the employees take that up? Because again, mental health and awareness and people feeling they got safe spaces and the opportunity to talk it when sometimes they don't want to is always good.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. In terms of leavers, it's fairly evenly spread across the piece. We do get staff leaving us earlier on in their careers, and some of that is to do with us being a smaller organisation with a flatter structure. We are focused on developing staff, and sometimes that works in our favour and an opportunity comes up for a role in the structure at the right time for them, and sometimes it doesn't and they go off to another council or another employer. Sometimes we see them circling back, but we also have some longer serving staff leaving us as well, which is absolutely to be expected. We would see retirements and that kind of thing happening. So it's well spread. I could certainly look at bringing some more data on that if it's of interest at the next meeting. And then in terms of mental health, the mental health walk, we had approximately 20 people come to the walk itself. We have had requests from others who are in different locations to see if we can do it as a regular thing for staff. So we have spoken to our social group, and they're going to look at building something in, so we have something regularly and in different locations. But we will monitor the usage of the wellbeing room. So, and I don't mean we'll know who uses it, but we've got a QR code within the room to ask for feedback so that we can adjust what's in there and how people use it. So we will get a feel for how well used it is and how successful it is, and report back here.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Ian Albert.
Cheers, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Rebecca, for the report. I really just follow on from Claire's question around some mental health, because obviously you very much touch on in the report that mental health, anxiety, depression is one of our main causes for absence, and clearly that links well with the work we're doing or trying to do, to help alleviate that you've just sort of touched on in your response to Claire. I mean, I guess two things there really. One which is actually where is the room? Is it well publicised, and where that's somewhere on the publicised around the internet on posters and so on? And I guess the difficult question is, do we think that there is, or what do we think? No, it's probably if there is any linkage or changes to whether people are more or less likely to suffer from that anxiety, depression, which is truly an awful thing to suffer from, and whether they're working at home and contact with colleagues and so on. I guess that's that where people are maybe working at home and maybe don't see their colleagues that often, other than maybe when they did come in or Teams meetings and so on, as to whether there is a feeling that can help to exacerbate things, or indeed colleagues maybe don't pick up the signs that maybe someone isn't as well as they might be, or indeed managers don't.
I think that's a really relevant question, Councillor Albert, but also I wouldn't expect Rebecca to be able to answer that from a psychological point of view. So just as best you can on that one.
Thank you. So just going back to the wellbeing room and where it is and how we're publicising it, it's just outside the council chamber. So as you're looking away from the council chamber, it's on the left, the room there. We have launched it at the Wellbeing Walk, which was talked about on Viva Engage, and has been talked about at our staff consultation forum. We will do an insight article, so there'll be information on the intranet, and we've also built it into our induction program. So when staff start working with us, my team have a HR welcome meeting with them, and they will be referring to it in there as well. We'll continue that messaging around it. So when we talk about mental health and wellbeing, we'll continue to talk about this room, and we will review that feedback and talk about what we might do next with the room too. In terms of mental health illness linking to home working or people, I think there might be a link to people feeling isolated. One of the things that we're really clear on in terms of home working is that managers should be having regular one-to-ones with their staff, including their appraisal and their RPR. We have face-to-face meetings, not all the time, but often we will have face-to-face meetings within teams. Most people are hybrid workers, so they will have days where they come into the office, and teams very much manage that around how works best for their team and their service. So my team, for example, will have at least one whole team office day every week, and generally people are in more regularly than that to carry out their day-to-day jobs. So there shouldn't be isolation within our staff community, because there are lots of different ways that people can have contact. If they aren't connecting, or they don't want to connect personally with their teams necessarily, we also have things like the social group, who arrange payday outings and walks and that kind of thing. So there's other social ways of connecting with colleagues as well.
Could just very briefly come back, and thanks for that, Rebecca. I think that's really helpful. I mean, I think I'm very much supportive of flexible working and people being able to work at home, and but I'm also conscious that they're particularly where someone might get into that kind of ill health, that there is always that danger of isolation, and it's certainly a difficult role for managers in helping to manage that with their with their staff, particularly if they're not seeing them every day, even though they may be talking to them on the phone or whatever. But yeah, really appreciate that, and I really appreciate obviously the work that's being done around well-being, and particularly the mental health awareness week and the other things that you're doing. I think it's so important to be able to manage our staff's health in all its aspects as well as possible, and I really appreciate your report on this.
And it's the old chair's office, Ian, so have a look when you finished in mine. Keith.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks, Rebecca. I'm just wondering, reading this, whether you feel, Rebecca, that given the uncertainties surrounding the future of local government, that's had any impact on our ability to recruit. And I noticed it was also a topic at the staff event, and wonder what feedback we got back about that, because that, of course, will also feed in, I think, to mental health if people are feeling unsure about, where they're going in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskins. In terms of LGR, local government reorganisation, having an impact on our ability to recruit, that's going to be really difficult to measure, and we're fairly early on. So I don't think that we are able to say whether we're seeing that yet. We've always had pockets where it's been more difficult to recruit, and I haven't seen that getting any worse or significantly better. We have hard to fill roles, but it's something that we're very conscious could have an impact in the same way that it could impact turnover, and we need to make sure that we've got the resource in place to be able to carry on with day-to-day services, but also the local government reorganisation project. We've had some good feedback from staff on the staff events. The session on local government reorganisation was really appreciated, despite us not having lots of answers for people yet. And I think a lot of it is about us being really clear that we will be transparent and upfront about what's happening and what this looks like. And if we don't know the answer, we will say we don't know the answer. And Anthony did a lot of that at that meeting, and that was very much appreciated. We also did some team building, and people got together face to face. And I think that everybody really enjoyed being able to do that and meet people that maybe they've only emailed before or may have only met via a Teams meeting like this. So we got some good feedback there. And there's an element around developing skills at that kind of event as well. And we did a session on resilience, which we can adapt. We've had some feedback on that will allow us to change things for the future, but I still think it's a positive message to get out there right now around us wanting to ensure that we put the right things in place to support our staff.
Thank you.
If I can just add to that, I was at the staff event. I did the introductory speech, words, whatever. It was a really good turnout to all three of the events, and this is something, as was said, we've taken on board from the peer review, and I think it's great, and I think it's going to be something that works for us year on year. So yeah, very positive. Thank you, Rebecca. Bryony.
Thank you, and thanks for your report, Rebecca. I've got a few questions. I might start with the one that I had last because it follows on from the what we've just talked about with the staff event. So I gather you did it in three different slots to allow as many opportunities as you can for people to go. I just wondered what sort of proportion of those that could have been there were able to be there. And have you, it may be too early, but have you got any sort of breakdown on whether those are sort of full-time or part-time staff? So that's my first question. You might want to talk about that one first, perhaps.
Thank you, Councillor May. So we had approximately 200 staff attending across all three events. We haven't yet looked at the split of part-time, full-time. We ran 3 events so that we could cover off different times and different days. We also have made sure that the messaging around the LGR piece has been shared with people that were unable to attend, because inevitably there were people who were on annual leave that weren't able to be there. But yes, we've spread that time out, and we need to review the rest of the feedback that hasn't been done yet in terms of what we might do differently around the days or the times or the length of the session. There will be staff, care line, for example, that will find it a lot more difficult to be able to come away for a session like that. And we will do what we can to facilitate that, but it won't always be possible.
Thank you, that's fine. And then you mentioned that there were 2 recent vacancies in governance that have been offered but declined. I just wondered, obviously without giving sort of personal details, was there anything we could learn from the reasons that those were declined?
Not in these cases.
No. Okay.
We will always, whenever that happens, and it's fairly unusual, it's certainly unusual to see a couple at a similar time, that happens, we look to get information from the candidate and talk to the managers. And in this situation, there wasn't anything that we could have done to make that not happen.
Okay, that's helpful. And then thirdly, really quick question. Sounds like the apprenticeship schemes are going really well. And it's good to hear that you're sort of boosting support for apprentices as they come in. You mentioned that new apprentices would be allocated buddies. Are they also new starters, or are they apprentices that have been involved for a bit longer, so that they've sort of got their feet under the door, so to speak?
Not new starters, so slightly apprentices with a little bit more service. And of course, an apprentice will always have their line manager as well, who can support them, and they'll know who they can contact in HR. So there's a variety of different support for our apprentices. They're generally in contact quite a lot with the learning and development team within HR to support them through that apprenticeship as well.
That's great, thank you.
And while we're talking about the apprentices, I'm sure that those of you that weren't there have all watched the licensing meeting. It did come up in licensing how our apprentice that has been taken on full time within the licensing department brought in some observations about our taxi drivers and strategy for training, which has been brought into effect and had huge influence. And that's because they came through the system as the apprentice, and it's a really good positive feedback. So I am proud of the way that our apprentice scheme works, and it's proving itself time and again that it's a really good, valid thing. I also wanted to ask about 3.10, Rebecca, the inclusion. Are we incorporating the white ribbon scheme in with our inclusion training?
We talk about white ribbon when it's appropriate within our inclusion group. We don't have white ribbon as part of our EDI e-learning, I don't believe, but I can check on that.
Because that's something that I think is relevant. The other thing, as far as looking at ways that we can train people to be observers, active observers, There is something I'd like to bring up later about us looking at our employment's paperwork around domestic abuse and what we do around that. But I'll speak to you outside of the meeting on that. It just came up because we're going over that section. Now, this was purely for us to note. So unless anybody else has anything they wish to bring up, thank you very much, Rebecca, for that, which now leads on to the discussion paper on employer value proposition. Rebecca again.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I'll run through the paper before we get to the discussion. So the employer value proposition, EVP, defines the core promise an employer makes to its employees, outlining what they can expect in return for their work. A compelling EVP is crucial for attracting candidates and keeping existing employees engaged and motivated. So the core components of an EVP include development, flexibility, inclusion, well-being, and reward. So I'm just going to run through each of those and talk a bit about what we do as a council. So we support the continuous development of our employees. We offer a range of training programs, workshops, and courses to help employees enhance their skills and advance their careers. Examples would include supporting employees in the HR team to become fully CIPD qualified through formal training, providing a whole suite of e-learning to all staff, and running a resilience workshop at the staff event. We also provide coaching and mentoring to support development and pay for professional subscriptions. We know that maintaining a healthy work-life balance and flexibility is vital for our EVP. We offer flexible working arrangements, including hybrid and remote working options and flexible hours to help our employees balance their professional and personal lives. We also provide generous leave policies to support staff in taking the time they need and have proper breaks from work. And this is good for both the employee and the employer. Diversity and inclusion are at the heart of our values, and we want to create a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their background or identity. Our inclusion group and networks foster collaboration and a sense of belonging amongst our employees. We often talk about well-being in this meeting, and we have today, and our aim is to create a healthy and supportive work environment where our employees can thrive. We offer a range of wellbeing initiatives, including mental health support through signposting and mental health first aiders, an online wellness platform, financial wellbeing webinars, wellbeing group activities, and access to counselling services. We also offer a comprehensive benefits package to attract and retain employees. And these would include the local government pension scheme, generous leave entitlement, discounted gym membership, work parking permits, holiday flex salary sacrifice. And we regularly review these benefits to ensure they remain competitive. And we're in the process of introducing an electric car salary sacrifice scheme. These elements support a positive and supportive organisational culture and employee experience, so our employees feel valued, engaged, and motivated. Our EVP is communicated to potential candidates on our recruitment web pages, with elements being discussed during interviews and induction. And our employees can find out about our EVP through various methods, including the Hub, our intranet site, Insight magazine, staff consultation forum, staff briefings during their one-to-ones and appraisals with their line manager. So I'm, of course, happy to take questions, but I'd also like to ask committee members to consider the questions at the end of the paper. So do you think our EVP is clear to our employees and potential candidates? How might we better communicate our EVP, and what role do councillors have in promoting the council as an employer?
Thank you very much. I'm going to start off with the councillors' roles. As far as I'm concerned, as councillors, if we're active on our social medias, we should be sharing advertisement for positions to work with the council. We should also be recommending things by word of mouth. One of the biggest things we can do is point out our pride in our workplace, pride in our staff, and show respect to officers at all times so that it shows that we want people working here. That'd be my two penneth on that. I do believe we explain our EVPs very well. I'm a little bit antsy about the electric car salary sacrifice scheme because it's not fair on a lot of our members of staff that wouldn't be able to have an electric car in a financially viable way as opposed to a petrol car. There are some people like myself that live mid-terrace in a heritage area that haven't got somewhere they can charge at home. And if you can't charge at home, it's more expensive to have an electric car than it is to have a petrol one. So I do feel that that may be unfair to some people, but it's very good for others. So I am very much in favour of it. Councillor Strong.
Yes, couple of things to add to your two penneth, my three penneth. In the EVP, where you've written, there isn't anything in there about our graduates and apprentices and the schemes that we offer there. And again, I think that's something that we're very good and very strong as a council. And I kind of wondered why it kind of isn't in that paper, because we've been running the apprentice scheme, and I'm probably 15 years or so now, maybe longer. I'm trying to remember quite when it came in, but it's a long time ago. And I do think it has been an incredibly successful programme. We've brought in through the apprentice scheme some really brilliant new talent who have come in, taken training and developed their careers. And again, I think to me that's another thing that I think we need to maybe should it be sort of woven into this sort of scheme, is that individuals, you are responsible for your developing your potential and then going after it and seeking to make those achievements. And I must admit, I know that there was one vacancy that was made last year, and I think we all looked and thought, oh, that officer will step up and take the role. And he didn't. He didn't want it. He didn't want the added responsibility, and that's fine. But it did mean that we, as a council, we had to recruit from outside. So I do think, if, in some cases, we can blow good trumpets about the opportunities, but also respect that some individuals actually, do like what they do and don't necessarily always want to take on the extra. So that's part of that. And I think the other thing of how we can also or should be looking to put in about the council and the work and environment and our ethic is looking at the staff surveys and publishing the data from the surveys, because that's what our staff tell us about what it's like and how well they do working here. And again, I think maybe that should be something again that we publish widely, particularly when we're trying to attract new talent into the organisation. It's my three penneth. And you're on mute, Daniel.
Bloody typical. It has to happen once a meeting, doesn't it? Rebecca, is there anything you'd like to come back on that? I don't think it was a direct question, just very valid points.
No, and I'd take the point around staff surveys. That data has been published, and we have used some of the kind of headline data in our recruitment pages. So I think in Anthony's video about telling people they should come and work for us because we're brilliant, there's a few lines there from the staff survey results. Absolutely, graduates and apprentices are a key part of a highlight of showing that we are committed to developing our staff, and that's one part of it, an excellent part of it, but one part of it. And we will ensure that we continue to talk about that within the organisation, but externally as well.
Thank you very much. Bryony.
Thank you. Thanks again, Rebecca, for the paper as well. A couple of questions. One is, how long have we had an EVP in place as a specific thing? That interests me in terms of the context of it. And second question is, have we got anything where we support employees to purchase bicycles as opposed to cars?
We
Because
do.
it's not actually mentioned in there, and I did wonder whether that it would be worth adding that in there as well. Those are my two questions, and then just a general comment, because the first question you've got is, do you think our EVP is clear to our employees and potential applicants? I don't know, but it might be worth perhaps asking them, or particularly for employees, putting a question in the staff survey about that, so that we can monitor their awareness of the various aspects of it, maybe.
Thank you. How long have we had an EVP? It's something that's always there. It's a way of describing what we've offered, and we've always offered something. Where this is just looking at it as a concept, an overall concept of what we offer. So we wouldn't publish a document saying this is our EVP. It's just there on our website, on the recruitment pages, and within everything that we do. And some of it is about culture, and so it's more difficult to explain and write down. Yes, bike to work scheme is in place, has been for several years now. And yes, asking staff, I think we get some of that feedback through our staff surveys. We've also asked candidates for some feedback as well. So we don't do that all the time, but periodically we dip in and we ask candidates around why they applied and what they thought of the process and that kind of thing. So we do gather some of that feedback periodically as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Rebecca, for the report. I mean, I've dealt with employer value propositions over the piece. I mean, my start-off point is, what a horrible name. And that's not your problem, because this is what it's called across industry, business, the private sector, and so on, and has come into the public sector. I really hate the name. But what it's about is what comes underneath that is what's really, really important. We don't mention here, and this is not a drafting committee, but I think obviously one of the key things that I think that helps obviously to challenge us that we're delivering our value proposition is our members' right to join a trade union, and that's not mentioned on here. We mentioned the staff consultation forum, but equally our trade unions are an important partner in actually delivering this, and that I think that's really critical. You mentioned here about role councillors promoting the council as an employer. Yeah, I mean, and I obviously share sort of Dan's thoughts at the start. It probably will be worthwhile actually in making sure. I'm not sure whether this is something that comes up in induction sessions for councillors, or particularly new councillors, or even just reminding councillor colleagues what is it that we do as an organisation to help support and recruit, retain employees. I guess obviously part of the thing about councillors promoting that is they actually know what this is in the first place, and what are the things that we do offer. And clearly, for example, Brian touched on one thing that that we do, bicycles, and I'm sure there are other things that we do, but it's probably worthwhile just making sure the councillors are aware of that. Many will be, but I'm sure there will be some that are some that are not. And I guess the other thing is probably there, as you mentioned, in keeping this in sight of both managers and staff at whether it's sort of training sessions or meetings and other things, making sure that our staff are aware of all these things themselves, and making sure that's well communicated within the organisation. But yeah, no, we're welcome the paper, but hopefully you can take on board one or two of those comments.
Thank you. Absolutely, the union are a key part of what we do, and I meet regularly with branch The paper gives some examples, and I haven't covered everything, but yes, that will be in there. I haven't mentioned earlier around another way of communicating this is through our people strategy, which we're in the process of developing, and the unions will play a part in that as well. Yes, and take your feedback around councillor induction and that information being available. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Rebecca. The recommendation is to note the discussion paper. I'm going to take this by dissent. All in favour? There we go.
Yeah, noted.
We move on to item number 8, the Staff Consultation Forum minutes. Ian Cooper to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. You've got 3 sets of minutes there, June, July and September. August is missing, so we're meeting in August because of the summer holidays, so just those 3. A lot of what is in there is HR updates, and most of that Rebecca's already covered, so I'm going to go over that again. Also got in there building updates and also IT updates. I'm not going to go through the other those, but kind of it shows sort of breadth of what we cover in those meetings. I think one thing I'll do to highlight, and I think I mentioned this last time as well, is we're getting really good engagement from our reps recently. Sometimes they've dwindled a bit. We've got some good numbers, good people attending the meetings now, and it's getting a really good meeting. So it was be quite short at times, particularly there's not many questions these days, which is nice. But there's an opportunity there for members of staff to ask questions either directly or through their reps. But yeah, a really good engaging meeting. And yeah, it's a good thing to go to every month and hear what's going on.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And thank you to all the reps as well that attend and give the information. Are there any questions for Ian?
No, can I make an observation though?
Go on.
And I brought this up years ago, and I know he's very busy, and I know he was doing those local government open meetings, but I did note that Anthony had missed all 3 meetings that you reported on. It's just an observation.
Is Anthony one of the named people that should be at those meetings?
Yes, he is invited. Yeah, I think before that period, I think he's been gone to quite a few of them in a row. Because at one time we did clash for another meeting. Yes, it probably is local government organisation related. But yeah, we'll
just say I'm watching. I mean, you know, to me, staff are the most important thing of an organisation. He is head of the paid staff. That's so. It's an observation, and I'm watching. I really do think that it's good that he's fully engaged, but I do know he's very busy on that, and I do know he had the other meetings. But oh look, Lewis is going to comment.
I was just going to say, having been in 400 hours now this year of meetings on LGR, and Anthony's doing 3 times what I am, it is insane. I believe one of those dates was when he was away anyway. Louis.
I was just going to say he was at the last meeting, if that helps. The one at the beginning of this month.
Oh, thank you, Louis. Thank you.
And Ian.
I was going to highlight that in June I missed the meeting as well. I was busy with some
but I don't monitor you, Ian.
But we did make sure that Sarah, as another director, could attend. We actually at least one director was there to get that kind of senior manager representation. But yes, where we can, both me and Anthony will attend. But yeah, obviously, sometimes don't permit that.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is to note the minutes of SCF from June, July, and September 2025.
So noted.
Noted.
So noted to be. Right, if we move on to suggested discussion topics. I am to lead a discussion on possible future discussion topics. Anyone got any suggestions? Ian, Albert.
We talked last time. I think we said in the minutes it would be a major subject around sort of change management. I don't know whether sort of Rebecca or indeed Ian have got any sort of particular views as to when might be a good time to do that. But I mean, it's a big subject, and
it's in the calendar for January.
Is it in the calendar for January?
28th of January, we will be discussing change management, and if the information has come and the guidance, the UK Supreme Court judgment on single-sex spaces, which I'll have a lot to say on.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
So anyone got any other items they feel that will be useful for discussion? The change management, I think, will be very useful to discuss. What do we think about having a discussion on trade unions, membership, and what they offer to our staff?
What's the
Vast
percentage of
round of
staff?
indifference.
I was going to say, what percentage of our staff are members of trade union? Do we know that?
Please jump in if you know the answers.
It's a fairly low percentage. Last time I checked, it was around 15%. That may have increased since local government reorganisation was introduced.
May I encourage our representatives to use LGR as a good way of getting people to join? Do we have any other suggestions on things? Because obviously that one wasn't particularly well taken, and that's fair enough. Any other suggestions on discussion topics? We've already got one set up for next month, so I don't think we need to worry too much if we don't come up with any today. But if we could all have a good think about ones we could bring next time.
Okay.
And if you do think of any in between, you're very welcome to message myself. I have, or Robert. I'm sure he'd be delighted to receive that email. Right. In that case, as I go through, I will close the meeting unless there is any other business or anybody else wants to say anything. No. Meeting closed at 2:52. The next meeting is on the 28th of January, and I look forward to seeing everybody there. Thank you all for your input today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Goodbye.